Hello and welcome back to the development of the Feersum scheme compiler. So in the last stream we were looking at finishing off our support for libraries by going over our ability to reference different target frameworks. By the end of the stream we got to the point where we could compile a piece of scheme code against either the .NET 5 SDK or the mono version of the .NET Framework SDK. And right at the end, a telecoms engineer cut through my fiber cable. So the stream was cut short, but I don't think we really missed anything at the end. I was just cleaning things up and getting everything committed. But now we're back. Let's go over some of what we did. So that was in the... Well, it started off, let's follow it through from the options. So in the program, we added a new command line option for core lib path. So you can specify the location of the MS core lib. We flowed that into the options, which is the compilation options. So now the compilation options have configuration, output type, and core lib path. And then in compile, we come on. Oh dear. Again, the name of files. In the compile, when we get a piece of source code, we pass the oh no, it's in the main compile. This is compile file. That's why I'm getting confused and can't find it. We look at the MS core path. If we were given one, then we create this target info from it. Otherwise, we use the current runtime. So what this means is that if someone specified a path to the MS core, we will use that as our like default reference assembly where we'll load things like system.func from. If not, then we just find out where system.func or object is coming from the current runtime. So if we're running on .NET 5, that will be the like system.private.corelib. Whereas if you were actually compiling with the .NET SDK, then we'd go through this path, pass in the SDK library location for MS core lib, and we'd end up compiling against reference assembly rather than the actual runtime assembly. And in both cases, we end up creating a target info. So let's go have a look at that. So target info has our core library, where we've got things like conspair and all of our Lispy stuff, and the MS core library stuff. In both cases, we just steal the location of our local version of Serif for the time being, and if it's from the current runtime, we steal the location of objects assembly. If someone passes in a path, we use the path. Then later on in compile, we create a binder, which is down here. And when we do that, oh yes, it's load referenced signatures and load core signatures. So load core signatures now takes the target and it loads the scheme reference things. So in Serifa we have a bunch of different libraries like arithmetics. These are all marked up with Lisp library and Lisp built in, and load referenced signatures walks through that core location where we'll find the Serifa library and generates like a library definition, so we can call into those and bind them at a later date. We also have a bunch of changes to the reflection. So now load core types, which is the references to things like all of the attributes that we apply to things and system exception and conspire and stuff. This now uses reflection based on mono assemblies rather than using standard .NET reflection, and this gets that assembly definition as from the target info. So external assemblies, if we go and have a look at where that is passed in, comes from Srif assembly, MS core live assembly, which are loaded from the target. So that's how everything is flowed through. So the plan for today is to move on from that and have a look at being able to produce a .NET SDK. So the way that, say, a project like an actual F# project is compiled, you have this project definition with SDK equals. The same thing for C#, a CS proj has an SDK equals. And these are basically MSBuild property and target definitions. Both of them are actually the same one, and they're both resolved from something that's built into the .NET SDK. But you can actually add your own MSBuild properties and stuff and have your own custom SDK. So they can be defined in NuGet packages, and what we want to try and do is start working towards being able to write something like that. So I'm going to create a new folder for examples, and we can start sketching out what we'd want that to look like. So in here we would have like in here we would have a project, SDK equals, and then let's change this to MSBuild. Wow, what language does it think this is? Just standard XML. Okay. The idea is that we then have Feersum.SDK. What happens is with a NuGet style SDK, you'd have to put like a version in here. So we'll do 0.1.4 or whatever. And that would track our release effectively. Every time we release a new version of the NuGet package, you'd have to update that. It's kind of awkward. You can also get rid of having to specify it in that place by creating a global JSON file at the root, and then you only have to specify the SDK version once. But that would be hopefully in, well, no, we'd then need to have like an item group, and in here we'd have like compile include equals example.scm. And then in here we could have example.cm, which would do import scheme right, and then display hello world. So if I was to get a terminal and go into examples, .NET build is going to be unhappy because we don't have that SDK defined. But the key thing is that is at least roughly recognizing that this is a .NET buildable thing, and it's super hacky. We just need to actually write these definitions, write the actual sources, properties and target definitions. But for the time being, we're going to take a bit of a break from that and talk about Hacktoberfest. So it's October, which means it's Hacktoberfest, and Feersum is taking part. So if you want to, you can go to github.com/iwillspeak/Feersum, and we've got a bunch of issues that are labeled with up for grabs, and any of these can be tackled to open a pull request. So let's just pick a random one and do that to show you the idea. So for example, update Cecil to 0.11.4. So if we have a look at NuGet Cecil, the latest version of Mono Cecil is actually 0.11.4, whereas if we have a look in here, Cecil in our reference we have from Feersum is at 0.11.2. So really all we need to do is create a new branch, bump this to this. Actually, I'm going against my own contribution guidelines. The first thing we should be doing is shouting out that we want to do this. So I'm not signed in this browser, but I can be. Then we've got our branch. So let's just run the tests to make sure it all works. So all of these up for grabs issues are basically just small things that kind of need doing, but I never have the time or get around to. So I tend to like open an issue for them, and I'm happy to help people work through them, get to work on a compiler. I get some of the menial jobs done for me. Everyone wins, especially if you end up with a t-shirt at the end of it. Tests all passed, so let's commit that. So the change is just this one here, where we've bumped mono Cecil, bump mono.cecil, push that, and then we need to open a pull request. So we go to the pull requests, create a new one, fixes, and then we need to know what the issue number was, and it was issue 20. Now we wait for the CI, and this is the bit that I would do. I wait for the CI. If everything looks good, prove it, and mark it as Hacktoberfest accepted if it's in October, and then merge it. So we'll leave that to do its job in the background. So back to this, let's go to the main branch again, create our own branch for the actual SDK. .NET SDK support. So what are we going to be doing here? Well, I guess we can probably start off by just trying to build that example I'm kind of tempted. I mean, I kind of really want that to all work, but we'll see what we can do. So let's just do Microsoft. Let's get out of this stupid get out editor. Don't want that. Yes, save. SCM. I think it's that. Feersum, yeah. So SDK. How much of this do we want? Well, it's got to be the whole thing. And we can delete as appropriate. Set the language back to XML. I don't know if there's a way we can do that with the editor config. Our build has completed, so let's rebase and merge. Can we, with editor config, tackle this? VS Code has editor config support, and we're already using it, I think. Is this it? It's actually a plugin. Trim. Editor config properties. This is what we want. Indent style, char set. Is there like an editor config VS Code one? Yeah. Do we have a wiki? Text says, okay, I don't care. I just want to know what the properties are that I can set. I mean, it does. It seems to suggest it's only those properties: indent style, indent size, tab width, end of line, trim trailing white space. Is there something I can do for this? So, file. What was this? It was language mode. Language extensions, maybe? Nope, it means Visual Studio extensions. Language. Okay. This looks like it might be it. This is the settings for like. Okay, this is my user settings. Add file mode extension. Oops, I've forgotten what it was called again. King configure file association, eh? Is that what? Did I not get that option down here? Oh, okay. XML. Now if I close them, open it again. Nice. If I go to edit user settings, what has that done? How can I view them as JSON? Open settings, JSON. Files.associations. So what I think we want to do is move this for the time being into the VS Code like local preferences, which is here, because then that means anyone who uses VS Code will get XML for SCM proj files. And try again. Yeah, we're still at XML. Good. So what have we got so far? We've got this. We've got our item group with our compile, which we can just replace this item group with. I think we want to do the same thing that F# does, where you force people to explicitly list the files, because the order might be important in compilation, whereas with C# you can just glob for all the files. Mutual recursion is supported, so it's all good. I think for us, we probably want to force you to specify all of the files. We don't need a project reference, or do we? Well, for the time being, we might want one to Feersum. That will be so let's have a look at docs for project references. The docs.microsoft.com is not responding for a bit. Excellent. So, right, I guess we should probably do like a high level overview of what MSBuild is first. So, MSBuild is a bit like Make, but it's got a lot more XML. It's the Microsoft build system. And the idea is that you have projects, and MSBuild can build a target in a project. You can have targets that get triggered by other targets. You can have targets that depend on other targets, and all the rest of that. And MSBuild can run targets in parallel and works out the dependencies between targets. There's kind of, I think, 3 main things in MSBuild. Properties, which are like strings. So in this case, like key value pair. So you've got a property here defined as output type. The value is exe, package tool, which is true. You have items, which are like kind of like files or things like that. And in this case, we've got 2 different items. So we've got one, the difference being like properties, you have output type is a specific thing. Whereas item group, you can have more than one project reference and you can have more than one compile. So this, in this case, like compile is a type of thing, and you can do include, exclude, and you can use globs and all the rest of that kind of stuff to find the files that you want to include. The idea is that you use properties to define like, well, properties, configuration, item group, items to be the things that you're operating over, and then the last thing would be targets, which are where you define the actions you want to take on things. So for this project, we're going to use the .NET SDK, which has already got a whole bunch of targets already defined in it. We don't need the description or the title or the tool command name. We'll set .NET 5. That would be fine. Then what we want to do is tell it not to glob the files. So there's a way to get MSBuild to just show you the final form of project before as it gets evaluated. I'm wondering if we can just get that working. .NET build. I mean, I expect this is going to fail. Yeah. Duplicate compile items were included. Enable default compile items. Nice, this is what we want. Why am I typing it when I'd already copied it? Because I had not copied it properly. Still, I should copy it. The reference project does not exist. Well, that's probably because we haven't got enough path there. So it's going to be /src. For some reason, MSBuild demands backslashes. And that is an FS proj. Okay. So now we need to define a target. No, target name equals, and then it needs to be this. So this is supposed to be called. I think this is the thing that generates all of your like global assembly info stuff. So if you have a look in things like here in the object folder, there's actually these .g. No, not that one. Not that one. Is it in the debug folder? Yeah, generated. So you have this like assembly info. I think this is generated by that target, except for the fact that we're not going to support that yet. So we're just stubbing it out with a target that does nothing. Now it's saying the target core compile does not exist. So we can define that as well. Target name equals, and core compile is the .NET Core compile target. So we can do target like this. We can do message, I think. And this should hopefully, nope. target message text equals like this, like that. I could have read the error message there. It said the element text beneath message is unsupported. And I think we need to do a before target here. And it's going to be core compile before targets. I think this is very tenuous. No, it's still complaining about that. It depends on like this. That makes sense because it's something that's dependency is not being generated, I think. No. What is not working here? It's the app host it's complaining about. Maybe it's because we've set the output out to exe. Okay, that's positive. Our message is not being displayed, but I think that's because the log level's too low. Maybe? No, there it is. So what we can do here is we can now, because we've got the compile items, which should be the things that we need to compile, we can kind of echo them out. So we would run Feersum, and then like use $ for properties, we can use @ which allows us to access the items, and then we want compile, and then I think that should be like the list of items. So let's try that. Still gonna not produce an output assembly, but and so we see we've clearly got some stuff in here which we don't kind of want. It's got this .NET 5 example.assembly info. which is in debug net 5. Did it actually generate it? Oh, it's generated this. This is awkward. Don't know what's producing them, but I think we might just be able to filter them out. Filtering an item group so that it only so we do item group compile equals. We can then do filtered. This is from hot off the press of Stack Overflow here. So we do compile, and we transform it where the extension is SCM. And this is going to be scheme files. Scheme compile items, that kind of sounds right. Let's see what we end up with. Oh yeah, I need to run it like that. No. Reference to the built-in metadata extension, a position was not allowed in the condition. But why though? Do I need to put it in a different item group? Ah, the item group needs to be inside the target. Which makes sense, and then that makes the scheme compile files specific to the target. And now we can see that we've only got example.scm, which means we can do exec command, I think. Then what we want to do is we've got to produce a file called intermediate assembly. So we can do -o that. Let's do this as message still. we still need to work out how we're going to get Feersum there. I need the importance equals high. Verify. So it would do Feersum example.scm objects debug net5 example.dll. And then how do we get? We could just hard code that path, couldn't we? So let's go back to what we were looking at before, which was MSBuild project references. I'll make that a bit bigger. So project references. Emit target outputs. Default is blank. If the reference metadata is set to true, yeah, I don't think we want that. Reference output is set. Yeah, we don't want that. So yeah, I think we want reference output assembly to be false here. Then we don't end up trying to compile a reference the compiler, but it makes sure that the compiler is built first. And then I think we might just hack this for the time being as dotnet that path bin net 5.io, and it said there that you could choose what configuration. Set configuration. Like that. Then we can rely on this being built in release. And then feersum.dll. Now, does that look right? What? Oh. We've now got to build the compiler in release mode. Still no example, but if we change this from a message, if we change this to an exec command equals, get rid of the importance high. No. Could not execute because the commander file was not found. source Feersum bin net. Oh, it's the other way around. Bin release net 5.0. Net 5.0 and then Feersum. I think that needs to be MSBuild. Build this file directory, maybe. Because I have a feeling that it's not. No. Ooh, I think I know what we need. Do we need that? To separate the command dogs? No, still not happy. Can I just drag and drop? No. How about copy relative path? So if we take all of that and paste it there, what do you say? Oh, could it be the slashes? It might be because we're on Linux and the slashes are all different. Oh, I think it was. I'm just complaining about those dashes. This is getting better. It's getting dangerously close to working. It's not. Expected file obj debug net 5 ref does not exist. I think we should. Let's create the command once. Then we can use a variable reference to it in the actual exec, and we can echo it out. Yeah, build command. Yep, no. We can change this one to be a message text equals the build command. Importance is high. So we can see what it's trying to run. Element text beneath build command. Oh yes, this needs to be in a property group. Because it is a property. All of XML is a programming language. So it looks like we're supposed to be generating a ref DLL as well. Interesting. And it looks like it's supposed to be in the obj debug. Does Feersum do that? Let's have a look. Find out what's trying to do this. Copy ref assembly. So it takes the intermediate assembly. Produce ref assembly. I think we need to set this to false. And it's only going to work. So now can we actually dotnet run it? That'll be the test. Output type is exe. Is it going to just work? Okay. Well, we can solve that by adding a project reference to Srifa. I'm going to copy and paste it because I didn't copy that properly because I don't trust myself to type. In this case, we do want to reference the output assembly. We can still do configuration release though. Even though we weren't actually going to pay any attention to the references, I think that will mean that .NET copies it to the output folder for us, which it does. Excellent. So that's it, except for the fact that it's clearly not. This is probably enough to hack together into a commit though. So let's start annotating these bits and stage them. So this is, well, let's say this is going to be like the default property group that you'd normally expect. For a CM project, just like this project, CS project. And that's gonna have just those bits in it. No. Property group. So then for this property group, this is disable bits of the .NET SDK we don't want to use. MSBuild SDK. So this is effectively turning off bits of the .NET targets files that we're not actually going to use. This is reference the compiler, so we have it built. Reference or core library .NET copies it to the output directory. This wants to go up here. This is going to be defaults. We don't. Yeah, we don't want default compile items because of ordering. And then down here, this is going to be. This is just a stub target to keep MSBuild happy. This should. Well, I don't know. What does it? We can have a look in the current version targets. What does create manifest resource names do? Is that prepare resource name? Prepare resource names. I mean, there's 7 references to it. That's the prepare resources. Depends on. Okay. So I think it's that, like, prepare resources target is the next thing. Prepare a resource group. Yeah. So maybe it's an input for compile somehow or other. What should create manifest resource names do? The API supports the product infrastructure, is not intended to be used directly. Okay. Okay, something to do with localization. That's it. MSBuild /pp. Foo.log. This is the MSBuild log. And can we make this XML as well, please? XML. Let's just make it an XML file. So we have a project. There's an awful lot of. What did I even? Yeah, I expected that to like collapse the whole project, not just a little bit of comment. Using X. This is a lot to read. Something about importing common props. Let's go find if we can find that. Create manifest resource. Okay, so we have a target, and that's our empty one. This is all our stuff. Yeah, example SEM default property group with all our comments, including the one. No, not including it because I've not yet saved this. It does a build command of .NET and a message of it. Microsoft NET SDK before common targets. Where else is it specified? We've got the prepare resource names depends on a comment compute intermediate satellite assemblies. I wonder where that so this is to do with like embedded resources and stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'll just find out what that's supposed to be doing. Not sure what it. Is that right? It's no, it's job. This is compilation target. This target calls the Feersum compiler. Armed with all of that comment, let's add this. Can we add this? Yeah, go on. Let's add this to the SDK. .NET SDK. Sorry, I mean SLN. SLN. I said SDK too many times this stream. SLN above add dot. Now, if I do dot, now if I change, now if I do this, should build our example. Yeah, trash it. And we can stage what we've got. So we've got settings so that we treat our new project format as an XML file just to make it a little bit nicer to read. We've got our incredibly complex example program, and we have a bunch of MSBuild, which on the face of it doesn't seem to be quite as complex as it did when I was writing it. So add or call compiler from MSBuild. Add example that compiles a .NET. From scheme using an MSBuild project file. There's a few things missing here though. So for a start, let's test. No, we already have a test folder. We already have an example folder. .NET new exe. Is that right? No. .NET new console. That's it. So another thing that we can do in the future. Oh, let's check some things off. Introduce Hacktoberfest, we already done that. And target that calls a compiler. We have that. But we'll carry on going. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah. As well as SDKs being essentially just the NuGet package with some MSBuild stuff in it. The same thing is true of these things that you use with .NET New. So when I do .NET New console, you can provide new things for .NET New in a NuGet package. So once we've got an SDK and stuff working, we can have a Feersum dot and the I don't really know, templates or something, and then you'd be able to install that with .NET New, be able to do like .NET New console with a language of scheme, and it would produce something that referenced our SDK or something like that. Where I was going with the second level of indirection here is if we have this targeting .NET 5, I can do .NET. What on earth did I just do? I can do .NET run in here. And it does the build, and it does the run, just like it did for ours. But because I've got Mono installed, I can do net 472 or something, I think. And I can do .NET run, and this will also compile and run. He says, hoping that the C# is compatible with the old framework and that Mono is being found correctly. what happens if we change the target framework in our example? I'm going to suggest it's not going to work. Which will be interesting because we did have MSBuild and stuff working. There you go. Well, there's that, yes. I guess we can compile that for more than one framework. Let's just do net 4.5. It's a good common denominator. Note that we don't need to compile a compiler for .NET Framework because he says Feersum targets. It cannot be referenced by a project that targets. But I thought we said reference output assembly equals false. If the reference project without negotiating the most compatible target framework. Sounds like what we want. Because we're not actually referencing it. Arg helpers. Value tuple. Let's do 472 then. Because I think that's the latest one we've got in this mono install I've got locally. Hash code does not exist. So if net framework p.car.get hashcode. The key here is we don't actually need, all the hash code needs to do is be the same if the items would compare the same. It doesn't need to be different if the items would compare different. So because we compare both the head and the tail of the list, we can just take their heads hash code for .NET Framework. Right, what have we got now? Yes, and this is the problem. Could not load file or assembly, system private core lib. And the problem we've got here is that the output assembly is still linked against .NET 5. And the only reason it appeared to work before was because we were running a .NET 5 version of the compiler and it just happened to support the target framework that we were targeting. And so all that work that we did before is kind of gone. So what have we got here? We've got change the target framework. We can get rid of that example, I think. Yeah. We want our example to pass through the referenced assemblies, but I think what we probably want to do is that, so there's we'll need to we've got reference path, which I think if we looked at that pretty printed stuff before, we'd see. Let's go try and generate that again. New this thing. So reference path. What else we have? So candidate assemblies, target framework, directory, target framework directory, eh? But I think reference path is the right thing to look in. This is going to be effectively everything that should be referenced. So what we want to do is the way our compiler works. I need to close some of these tabs. We'll want to split these out into two different things, and we could do them again with an item group. So we want a framework reference, and that's going to be reference path. And then the condition is going to, so we're going to take everything that should be referenced. And we want this to be core lib reference. And you want it to be file name. And you want it to be the system.runtime. Or, and let's do, because we know that it could be MS core lib as well. And then let's put some spaces around this because it seems to be the convention to wrap your string so that you don't get confused by whether or not there's an opening or closing quote like that. So then with that, I think we should be able to do dash 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 dash, and then it's in our program. We have core lib path. And we want that to be core lib reference. Like that. And now it's going to work. We'll build it first, see what the invocation to our compiler ends up being. Well, that's great. Cannot read keys. Ooh, he's trying to run the REPL for some reason. Let's go back. Must have messed this up somehow or other. I guess we can put some quotes around it so it ends up being, if it ends up being empty, is system runtime the right thing? Oh, there was another one we wanted as well. We also wanted net standard. Let's try that again and see what happens. And I'm going to be right on it with the control C so that we can hopefully see what it tried to do. Core lib path is empty, but why? Can we just try putting reference path in here? And we will stop running it until we're sure that we know it's going to work. Right. So we've got system.core. What else have we got? MS core lib.dll. So I need to look at what the item group properties are, I think. Contains the file name without the extension. So full path, file name. It's not that, is it? Is it that? Oh, we need to change that to core lib reference. If it's case sensitive, then this is great. Let's try changing the target framework back to .NET 5. And see if our system.runtime thing works. So we've got 2. So it's working for .NET 5. But why is it not working for .NET 4.7.2? Reference. It's just, yeah. List all the reference paths. Interesting. That's because that needs to be an @ It's not. It's not because it's MS core lib, not MS core lib. Is it? I think it might be this. Have I been misspelling this all the time? Nice. So that should now pass in. Yeah, that should pass in the core library reference. Let's get rid of the message that lists them all. Try again. Okay. Can we run it? Boom. So that is a an MSBuild project that's targeting the NET 472 framework that's using our compiler to cross-compile using Mono. And I think that's where I'm going to call it a day. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.